Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight released a few more spoilers for Empire at War. These come from the Knights of Ren podcast as well as the Jedi Trials podcast. There'll be links in the description to where you can check them out. We're going to go into our first card here. We're just going to discuss what I think of them. So first up we have the Magnaguard. 8 health for 9 points, non-unique, villain red non-unique. 1 melee, 2 melee for a resource, 2 melee for a resource, 1 shield, 1 resource, and a blank. And the cool thing with this is before this character would be defeated by damage, instead defeated after this round ends. So that's really cool. So even if it takes lethal damage in the middle of a round, you can still roll it out, resolve it, and potentially win a game if you're able to defeat your opponent's characters before the round ends when the Magnaguard takes the fatal damage. So the sides, like two of the sides are pay sides. I think it would be better if it was just one of them being a pay side, but they probably had to balance that out with this ability where even when it's defeated, you have until the end of the round to actually finish your turn. So if he's the last character you have, they defeat him, and let's say your opponent's other character only has 2 health left, and it's their final character, you can then, if you have a resource, pay that resource, do the 2 melee damage, defeat their character, and technically win the game because the Magna Guard's defeat condition doesn't trigger until the end of the round. So that's very cool. 9 points, I think, is pretty good. So you can run like a squad of these guys at 27 points for 3 of them. You can run something like double Death Troopers and one of these guys, or tons of other different builds as well, because they're all just 9 points. So you can do like 2 for 18, and then like another 12-point character. I think they're gonna be pretty interesting. The pay sides are kind of not great, but I think they had to like I said had to balance out the fact that once it's defeated, it doesn't defeat until the end of the round. So that is the Magnaguard, another red non-unique character from Empire at War. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have the Jedi Instructor, hero blue non-unique character, 9 health for 8 points, 1 range damage, 1 melee damage, focus, shield, resource, and blank. And after you activate this character, you may turn one of your character dice to a side showing the same symbol as this die. So if you roll out the Jedi Instructor and you roll melee damage, you are then able to essentially focus one of your dice into a melee damage, or just turn it to a melee damage side. So that's pretty cool, especially if you do this with something like 4-speed. 4-speed special, let's say you already have a character rolled out, and they didn't roll particularly great, you can then, as claimed 4-speed special, roll out your Jedi Instructor, use its ability to change one of those dice, and then immediately resolve both of those dice. So you can resolve the Jedi Instructor for melee damage, and whatever die you just turned to melee damage as well. A good, also, really cool ability. Mixed damage, so that's kind of a downside, but I like that if you play like something like Force Training on this, or just have Force Training in your deck, that has the modified sides for both types of damage. So good, I think decent sides. Only 1 damage for only one of each type of damage, so only 1 point of damage from each type. You also have focus and shields and resources, which is pretty good. I like the points, so you can like throw in, let's say 2 of these for 16. Maybe throw in some Padawans as well. Maybe even just a deck that just consists of Jedi Instructors and Padawans. So if you like roll out your Padawan, roll a blank, and you roll the Instructor and get melee, you can focus your Padawan, or just turn one of your Padawan dice to the melee damage side. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting non-unique. I think the points are good for 8, and then you also get 9 health out of it as well. The damage sides are a little bit low, but I think that's again a balance thing where they didn't want it, having, let's say, 2 range and 2 melee or something like that. So that is the Jedi Instructor. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Commandeer, Villain red event, 2 resources. Resolve an opponent's vehicle die as if it were your own. If that die has a resource cost, you do not have to pay it. So this could potentially be huge. So 2 resources, so it takes up all the resources you get for the turn. So you want to use it in like the right situation. I also just love the artwork of this Imperial officer kicking this. I'm not exactly sure on the race, but kicking essentially kicking Max Rebo off of a speeder bike or swoop bike or whatever that is. But let's say your opponent rolls an ATST with high damage, and you just pay 2 resources, resolve that ATST die against your opponent, and then if it's on the resource side, you don't have to pay that cost. So that's very cool. I also like that this specifically says vehicle die, so you're not going to be able to like resolve the LR one the LR-15 cannon or whatever the Geonosis cannon is. You won't be able to resolve that with this because I think that's just a support. But pretty cool ability. I mean, like I said, 2 resources, so you have to use it in the right situation and use it to potentially do a lot of damage. And it also removes your opponent's die as well. So you're resolving it. You're paying 2, resolving it against them, and then since it gets resolved, it also gets removed and goes back to the card, which is pretty cool. So that is Commandeer. We're going to take a look at our next card. Next up, we have Entrenched, red hero event. 3 resources. Give 5 shields to your characters, distributed as you wish. So first up, 3 resources. So fairly expensive, unless you have a way to maybe like play this at a lowered cost or play it for free. But 5 shields is pretty cool, distributed as you wish as well. So each character can only take up to 3. So I like the idea of this in decks that are running, multiple non-uniques, maybe one like main character kind of thing. Um, Pay the 3 resources, or hopefully maybe get it out for less or for free, and then 5 shields distributed as you wish. This could work in a Qui-Gon deck. So you're only going to get 1 trigger off of it because it's 1 source of shields. But if Qui-Gon has a shield, you can pay 3, give him another, peel a shield off, give him another one, give some other shields to your other characters as well. I do think that it's actually very well balanced because it's three resources and you're getting 5 shields, and those 5 shields, I do like that you get to spread them out however you like. So I'm not sure if this is going to actually see play just because of the cost, and also vibro knives are still a thing. So I'm not sure if people are going to be running this in, because if vibro knives are still in the meta when Empire at War comes out, a lot of people won't run this just because they're paying 3 resources, they're getting 5 shields, and then the vibro knives are just going to cut right through the shields and do unblockable damage. But that is Entrenched. We're going to take a look at our next card. Next up, we have Trickery, neutral yellow event, 1 resource. Discard your hand. For each card you just discarded, you may remove a die showing a value that is equal to that card's cost. I'm not exactly sure how this works, so this is my interpretation on it anyway, and what it does. So you discard your hand. Let's say I discard 3 cards. Let's say I discard a 1-cost card, a 2-cost card, and a 3-cost card. Okay, so I discard a 1-cost card. I'm assuming now it lets me remove a die that costs 1. So I discarded a card that costs 1. I then remove a die that has a 1 on it. So like 1 damage, 1 focus, 1 shield, whatever. That gets discarded. I also that gets removed. I discarded a card that costs 2. I assume the same thing goes. It is, I remove a die that has a 2 on it. So 2 melee damage, 2 range damage, 2 resources, whatever it might be. That gets removed. If I then have a card that costs 3, that removes a die that has a value of 3 on it. So 3 range damage and so on. I'm thinking that's how that works. I really like this. So 1 resource, you pay that. You get rid of your hand. Let's say you don't have great cards in your hand anyway. They're cards that maybe have let's say you were playing red, yellow, and you have a bunch of spot a red character to do this, and your red character is defeated. You're not going to be able to use those anyway, with the exception of maybe discarding them to reroll. However, with this, you can discard them to remove dice. So I think that's actually a pretty cool card. I think it's costed well at just one resource, and that is Trickery. So we're going to move into our next card. And the final card we're going to take a look at today is Imperial Academy on Lothal. While you control this battlefield, after you activate a support, you may reroll its die. So no claim effect. You claim the battlefield. It doesn't have an effect when you claim it. But now, if you control it and you're rolling out supports, you get to re-roll those supports. So if you roll an ATST and it doesn't roll well, you get to re-roll it. So pretty cool. So I think it's essentially like you activate it, you don't like it, you roll that vehicle again. Again, no claim effect, but on vehicles where there's like again like a blank or two on them, you might get some use out of re-rolling it. I also like the idea of using this card with lockdown. So let's say this is your opponent's battlefield, and you play lockdown. You spot your 2 red characters, you take control of the battlefield, and then you roll your vehicle in. Let's say after you do that, you have the battlefield, and let's say then you play something like Tactical Mastery. You tactically pay 1, take 2 actions, roll your vehicle, rolls a blank, roll it again. Let's say it rolls 4 damage. Then with Tactical Mastery, get to resolve that die, which is pretty cool. So that is the Imperial Academy. I'm kind of liking these battlefields that don't have a claim effect, but have an effect that kind of persists throughout the round. So I think we had the Weapons Factory, which I believe was first vehicle you play each round. The cost gets decreased. We now have the Imperial Academy that lets you reroll vehicles once you activate them. So, or activate supports, I should say. So that it's not specific to vehicles, but you roll your support, you get to re-roll it. So kind of liking these battlefields that have this effect that will persist throughout the round, and especially cards that'll let you take control of the battlefield from the other player mid-round, something like like lockdown and stuff like that, or anything that'll let you basically just use your opponent's battlefield against them. However, stuff like Ascension Gun, since it has no claim effect, I don't think will actually work with these locations. But that is the Imperial Academy. That's our final card for today. Again, these spoilers came from the Knights of Ren and the Jedi Trials podcast. There'll be links in the description where you can check them out. That's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.